My 36-year-old female daughter, 11-year-old female, has a close-knit group of 5 best friends with whom she does everything together. At her school, students have to sit in the same seat for every single lesson, and my daughter and her best friends all sit together at one table. There is another little girl in my daughter's class called Winnie. Once, Winnie came to sit at my daughter's table when one of her friends was off sick. That day, Winnie constantly knocked my daughter's books and pens off the table accidentally, and borrowed her stationery only to snap one of her erasers, stain her highlighter with black ink, and was even found with my daughter's pens in her pocket. One morning, Winnie came to school crying nonstop. The teacher was very sympathetic and asked if there was anything she could do to help. Winnie said she wanted my daughter removed from her seat so she could have it, and the teacher agreed. The only empty seats left were all the way in the back corner of the classroom opposite her friends, and the only students sitting there were a girl who was known to be a delinquent and 2 older boys who had been held back. The teacher refused to give my daughter a real explanation for why she had to move seats, instead saying some generic stuff about being kind to those less fortunate. My daughter cried for a week straight. In our country, the school year ends in December, so that's over 7 months of being isolated from her closest friends. She's also starting high school next year and will be attending a private school, while her friends are going to a public school, so this is the last time she can hang out with them every day. A few days ago, I was called into school because my daughter had gotten into an argument with Winnie. Winnie had confided in my daughter's friends about how she had gone into foster care after her parents overdosed. Winnie was always a loner at school and wanted some girls to sit with during this time, and the teacher sympathized with her, so she agreed. The only reason my daughter had to move was because there wasn't enough space for 7 girls, and my daughter was simply the one Winnie liked the least, and she admitted to lying to the teacher about being uncomfortable around my daughter to get her moved. When my daughter found this out, she told Winnie she didn't understand why she had to pay the price, just because Winnie's parents were a bunch of insane criminals who didn't want her anymore. I know Winnie's had a hard time, but so has my daughter. Her older brother passed away only months ago. I told the teachers that Winnie isn't the only child going through a tough time, and I didn't understand why my daughter had to be punished for another girl's struggles as if she wasn't suffering herself. The teachers wanted me to make my daughter apologize for her remarks, and I said it was their fault for punishing her and forcing her to sit with the problem kids despite doing nothing wrong, and they were downplaying my daughter's grief and trauma to cater to a brat. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Everyone sucks here, and I do mean everyone. The best solution would have been for the teacher to redo the seating plan. She shouldn't have allowed a clique to form and become entrenched. I say this as a teacher. In the school where I was required to have a seating plan, I changed it pretty much every few weeks or when there was an issue. I almost never just moved 1 or 2 kids, unless they both requested it and it made sense. I generally started plans using a random name selector and then made adjustments to prevent problems. But I figured it did kids good to learn how to be near and work with a wide array of other people rather than just their friends. Your daughter was completely out of line with what she said and absolutely owes the other girl an apology. You would be missing a vital teaching opportunity if you did not help her to do so. You are a jerk for being so close-minded that you can't see that it's a classroom full of children who all have different backgrounds that you are not privy to. You are also a jerk for wanting to encourage the cool kid clique and referring to your kid as being punished when she was simply moved elsewhere. When my kids were younger and had tables, I know their teachers mixed things up pretty regularly. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I would have been irate if my daughter had been mistreated Winnie one day and then moved from her seat, far from her friends, because Winnie wanted to sit there. I'd never tell my daughter to apologize to someone who has bullied her and lied about her. The teacher has made the wrong decision every step of the way. Your daughter lashed out because her teacher has mishandled things and made your daughter the victim. Of course she's unhappy, and she has every reason to need the support of her friends after suffering such a recent loss. They can't use that as an excuse for Winnie. They are all strangers to her. You need to demand that the teacher fixes her screw-up immediately. One way or another, your daughter needs to be returned to her rightful seat. If she has to reconfigure the setup, so be it. What she's done is wrong and grossly unfair. Being nice to one kid doesn't mean hurting another in the process. You need to be a strong advocate for your child. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, Thanks for reading my last post and for all your support. It's been a tough few months since then, and I wanted to give you an update on what's been happening. After the meeting with the teachers, things got even worse for my daughter. Winnie started spreading rumors about her, saying that she was a bully and that she had made fun of Winnie's parents. The other kids in the class started to avoid my daughter, and she felt more isolated than ever. One day, my daughter came home from school in tears. She told me that Winnie had cornered her in the bathroom and threatened to hurt her if she didn't stay away from her friends. I was furious and immediately called the school to report the incident. The principal promised to investigate, but nothing seemed to come of it. Meanwhile, my daughter's grades started to slip. She was having trouble concentrating in class and was falling behind in her work. I tried to help her as much as I could, but it was clear that the situation was taking a toll on her mental health. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reached out to Winnie's foster parents and arranged a meeting with them. It was a risk, but I knew that something had to be done. At the meeting, I explained how Winnie's behavior was affecting my daughter and asked if there was anything we could do to help. To my surprise, Winnie's foster parents were very understanding. They told me that Winnie had been struggling with the loss of her parents and was acting out as a way to cope. They agreed to work with the school to get Winnie the help she needed and to ensure that my daughter was no longer a target. It took some time, but things slowly started to improve. The school arranged for Winnie to see a counselor, and she began to open up about her feelings. My daughter was moved back to her original seat, and her friends welcomed her back with open arms. Looking back, I realized that I could have handled the situation differently. I was so focused on protecting my daughter that I didn't stop to consider what Winnie might be going through. I wish I had reached out to her foster parents sooner and tried to find a solution that worked for everyone. But I'm grateful that things worked out in the end. My daughter is doing much better now, and she's even started to form a tentative friendship with Winnie. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope for a brighter future. Thanks for reading, everyone. Your support means the world to us. My sister gets all the praise for her grades, while I'm ignored, so I expose our parents' secret and watch the tables turn. My 16-year-old younger sister was born prematurely and almost didn't survive. For the first year of her life, I lived with my aunt and uncle because my parents wanted to devote as much time as they could to her and didn't want to worry about me during that time. I came home when she finally did. She has chronic health issues from being born prematurely, and she's had a few surgeries since leaving the hospital too. I remember my parents adoring her so much and celebrating every small achievement she made. I admit I was jealous. My parents' attention was so focused on her that I often felt overlooked, and that hasn't changed. They cheer and celebrate every little thing for her, but don't notice anything for me. When I received an award for being the best artist at the end of middle school, my parents didn't show up, didn't mention it, and I know they received the emails and the note from my teacher about the ceremony and the need for parents to be there at 2. I mentioned it to them, but they seemed disinterested. It really angered me. Another reason for my sister receiving so much attention is when she was in first grade, her school went on a field trip and there was an accident. My parents were frantic and worried, relieved when she returned safe and unharmed. They kept saying how she truly was a miracle, almost lost twice, and how she was the most precious thing to them. My sister has become so accustomed to talking about herself and her struggles that she often takes over conversations involving other people. She mentioned it at our cousin's wedding and at many of her classmates' birthday parties, leading to my parents receiving calls to pick her up early most of the time. However, she genuinely adores me and wants us to be close, always wanting to hang out. But she also constantly talks about her health struggles and premature birth, emphasizing how special she is. It annoys me. I don't like my sister, and I don't even know if I love her. Part of me resents her. I understand that our parents are at fault, but I dislike being around her. I dislike that she loves me. I wish she would focus on others because I'd rather not be in the same room as her. I don't want to celebrate her. Recently, my sister received a report card with all A's for the first time. My parents decided to throw a party to celebrate her achievement. She expressed her excitement and wanted me to be there. I didn't want to attend. I despised the idea of celebrating her accomplishments, so I chose not to show up and instead went to a friend's house. My parents only cared and noticed when my sister became upset that I wasn't there. As a result, I was grounded for 2 weeks, which just ended. My parents explained that it wasn't fair to my sister for me to skip such an important event for her. They told me it was all about her, not me. Since then, my sister has been acting differently. I sometimes hear her crying, making me realize that it did hurt her. Am I the jerk, Aita? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, but it's time to sit her down and explain how you have been left out and not celebrated. But you also need to explain to her about how talking about how sick she has been and how special she is causing problems for her, and it will keep her from making and keeping friends. Use the birthday parties as examples. It's not her fault, but she needs to be told the truth kindly and directly. She may be clinging to you due to lack of friends her age, and your parents are not setting her up for success. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Congratulations on your art award. Have you thought about talking to your aunt and uncle or a school counselor? You've tried with your parents, so maybe they'll listen to an adult? As someone else said, your parents are the ones to be mad at. They're the ones that have taught your sister to behave that way, just like they've taught you to resent your sister. It's their fault you don't have a better relationship. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a tough couple of weeks since I posted about skipping my sister's party. After being grounded, things were really tense at home. Mom and Dad barely spoke to me, and when they did, it was just to remind me how disappointed they were. I tried to explain my side of things, but they just kept saying that I needed to be more supportive of my sister. Speaking of my sister, she's been acting really weird around me. She's usually so bubbly and talkative, but now she barely makes eye contact. I caught her crying in her room a few times, and it made me feel guilty. I know I hurt her feelings by not showing up to her party, but I still can't bring myself to celebrate her achievements. One day, while my parents were out, I decided to snoop through some old boxes in the attic. I found a bunch of my old artwork from middle school, including the award I won for being the best artist. Seeing it again brought back all those feelings of resentment and jealousy. But then I found something else. A letter from my aunt and uncle, dated from when I was living with them while my sister was in the hospital. In the letter, they talked about how much they loved having me stay with them and how proud they were of how well I was handling everything. They even mentioned that my parents had confided in them about how worried they were about me and how much they missed me. Reading that letter made me realize that maybe my parents did care about me more than I thought. They were just so focused on my sister's health that they didn't always show it in the way I needed. I decided to talk to my mom about it. I showed her the letter and told her how I'd been feeling all these years. She started crying and apologized for not being there for me more. She said that they never meant to make me feel overlooked and that they loved us both equally. It was a really emotional conversation, but it felt good to finally get everything out in the open. My mom promised to make more of an effort to celebrate my accomplishments too, and to make sure I felt just as important as my sister. But then she dropped a surprise on me. She told me that the reason they were so overprotective of my sister wasn't just because of her premature birth and health issues. It was because when she was born, the doctors had found something else, a rare genetic disorder that could cause developmental delays and other problems down the line. My parents had never told anyone about it, not even my sister. They didn't want her to feel different or limited by it. But now that I knew, my mom said it was up to me whether or not to tell her. I was shocked. I had no idea my sister had been dealing with something like that on top of everything else. Suddenly, all of my resentment and jealousy felt so petty and small. I haven't decided yet whether or not to tell my sister about her condition. Part of me thinks she deserves to know, but another part of me worries about how she'll handle it. Will she feel like she's been lied to all these years? Will it change how she sees herself? I guess only time will tell. For now, I'm just trying to be a better brother and to appreciate my sister for who she is, health struggles and all. It's not always easy, but I'm working on it. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks again for reading and for all your support. It means a lot. My mother-in-law called me selfish for wanting my own mom's help with the baby. So I showed her the door and changed the locks while she watched from the curb. It's done me good to read because I thought pregnancy hormones had taken the best of me and maybe I was being too precious. Just to clarify, my husband has told his mom that we couldn't have her here due to unreasonable demands, that he had to be the one picking her up and dropping her off. She would be very offended if we got her a taxi. Their conversation ended with an agree to disagree. She is still planning to come. My husband has offered to book her tickets so we could book a convenient time and date, but she is not allowing him. Her plan is to inform us after booking. She is not coming around the time of the birth due to being offended, and since my mom will already be here, she doesn't want to come at the same time. My mom is not sad about this, to be honest. Also, she came after my son was born, and her help was that she would hold/feed the baby so I could get on with cooking and other chores. I am older now, and that's not the help I want. The sad thing about this is that this kind of drama only pushes us away, and I can see us seeing less and less of her. But obviously, she never takes responsibility for it and blames me instead. I, 34F, and my husband, 34M, have always planned to have 2 kids. But last summer, when we were planning for him to have a vasectomy, we had a change of heart and decided that we were not done and wished for one more. We live in a different country from our parents and are raising the 2 children we already have by ourselves, 5M and 3F. My mother-in-law has always said that having a third would be an absolutely horrible idea, irresponsible, and would be another grandchild she wouldn't get to spend much time with. We both have good stable jobs with promotion prospects, own our house, and as I said, we are raising our children with no support from family. We were lucky enough to get pregnant really quickly, and I am now a couple of weeks away from having our 3rd child. When we told her we were expecting another kid, she was less than enthusiastic, said that she couldn't celebrate due to her concern about how we would manage, and that in the end, I always got my way. The whole pregnancy, she hasn't called once asking about how I was doing. When my husband told her about any scan appointments, the subject was quickly changed to something about herself. Now my mom, who is very happy about the 3rd grandchild, offered a while back to come and stay with us for 2 weeks to look after the children while I have the baby. I knew from the beginning that I would have to have a C-section. After getting the date, I messaged her, and 10 minutes later, she sent me the plane tickets booked. Later that day, my husband called his mom and told her about the date of the C-section and that my mom was coming. She instantly became cold and ended the call. We were both confused. The next day, his sister called him, saying that he had to apologize to his mom for the way he treated her. He spoke with his mom, and she said she wished she had been the first to know because she wanted to be included in the birth and she wanted to see the baby first. She then told him that she had planned to come visit for 4 days around the baby's birth. This would involve my husband picking her up from the airport and dropping her at the airport, leaving me 3 postpartum looking after 3 children for 4+ hours. My mom will take the train 1.2 hours direct from the airport to 5 minutes from my house. I am being accused by mother-in-law and sister-in-law of being selfish and not thinking about including my mother-in-law. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, clearly. Your mother-in-law was not supportive of this pregnancy from the beginning, and she has shown 0 interest or care. All she has offered is judgment. It is not okay for her to make the birth of your child about herself. Also, your sister-in-law should stay out of this. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She doesn't sound like someone you'd want to have around while you're recovering from giving birth. This is supposed to be a calm and low-stress environment. She's going to be competing with everyone in the room and only seems interested in making an effort when someone is outshining her. I would tell her she can visit at a later date. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been really helpful to read your perspectives and realize that I'm not just being overly sensitive due to pregnancy hormones. So here's the latest update on the situation with my mother-in-law. After my husband told her that we couldn't accommodate her unreasonable demands of him being her personal chauffeur, they ended the conversation agreeing to disagree. However, she's still planning to come, but she won't allow my husband to book her tickets so we can arrange a convenient time and date. Instead, she insists on informing us after she's made the booking herself. Due to being offended and not wanting to overlap with my mom's visit, she's not coming around the time of the birth. Honestly, my mom isn't too bothered by this. When she came to visit after our son was born, her idea of help was holding and feeding the baby so I could focus on cooking and other chores. But now that I'm older, that's not the kind of assistance I'm looking for. The saddest part about all this drama is that it only serves to push us further away from her. I can see us having less and less contact with her over time. Of course, she never takes responsibility for her actions and instead blames me for everything. Now here's where things took a turn for the worse. Last week, my husband and I had a huge argument about his mother's behavior. He accused me of not making enough effort to include her and said that I was being selfish by prioritizing my own mom's visit. I was shocked and hurt by his words, especially considering how much stress and anxiety his mother's actions have caused me throughout this pregnancy. The argument escalated, and in a moment of frustration, I blurted out that maybe we should just cancel my mom's visit altogether to appease his mother. I immediately regretted saying it, but the damage was done. My husband stormed out of the house and I was left alone, crying and wondering how things had gotten so out of hand. Later that evening, when my husband returned home, we had a long and emotional conversation. He apologized for his harsh words and admitted that he had been feeling torn between his loyalty to his mother and his support for me. We both acknowledged that we needed to work on our communication and find a way to present a united front when dealing with his mother's demands. As we talked, I realized that my husband's relationship with his mother had always been complicated. Growing up, she had been overly critical of him and often played favorites with his sister. He had learned to appease her to avoid conflict. But now that we were starting our own family, he was struggling to break free from those old patterns. In the end, we agreed that we needed to set clear boundaries with his mother and prioritize our own family's needs. We decided that if she did come to visit, it would be on our terms and not hers. We also promised to support each other and not let her divide us. It's been a challenging week, but I feel like we've made some progress in navigating this difficult situation. I know there will be more hurdles to overcome in the future, but I'm hopeful that we can face them together as a team. Thanks for reading and for all your support. It means the world to me. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.